Bonji Vakorja, Eimear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 134. Brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I begin with a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiakon ar fud na crinne. Gamara Shiakon in our jaili agus in our jirha. Ganairi lin len ar cuid garmacha. Gamid buikas jiv. Jeha chivdaga, spirit chivdaga. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities, for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risked their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain. With thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let's see where people are. There's greetings from the frozen north of frosty ass Calgary, Alberta, Geraldine in sunny Colorado, refreshingly chilly Penzance. It's been, well, it's going to be -7 in Kilkenny. It was a lovely fresh day today. Very, very cold, -5 in the early hours. But sunshine, just beautiful blue sky. The traditional lands of the Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone, Wyoming, snowy Scotland. I hope you're warm, John. Hertfordshire, moonlit, frosty Hertfordshire, beautiful, lovely sunny day. We woke to ice on the inside of our bedroom windows. Well, I grew up with that, and I remember in the winter of 2010, we had ice on the inside of our bedroom windows for 4 weeks that never thawed. Anyway, so Minnesota, hello from New York, Kansas, Tandragee, cool. That's a very soft word, Leslie. I'm sure it's more frozen than that. I've just lost the comments. Vienna, lovely, backwoods of Ontario. Auckland, you're up early. Brilliant. It's just wonderful to see you all today. Okay, so we are going to the UK today. We are going to the New Forest. And hello from Ulster. And Claire James, you're so welcome to this Fireside Chat.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's amazing to hear where everyone's linking in from.
So you are in the New Forest. So what's it like there today?
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I went for a walk this morning, as you said, with you. Beautiful, clear blue skies and the sort of skeletal trees against the sky and lots of birds. Yeah, just really beautiful.
Wonderful. So I know we've had guests from the New Forest, and I was there for the first time last March at a Druid Gorset. I was so excited just to be in the New Forest, having heard of it and having some kind of magical fantasies about it. So tell us what your New Forest is like.
My New Forest is, well, I'm very lucky. That's the first thing. I'm very lucky. I've lived in and around the New Forest all of my life, apart from a brief spell when I lived in Bath. Excuse me. So I know it really well. And we live just outside of Lyndhurst, which is the main kind of village right in the centre. And apart from the traffic of people coming to see us, it's absolutely perfect. I can walk from our door to the forest within a minute just across the road there. And so, yeah, we're really lucky. We have deer that we can see from the window, and the oak trees, certainly in the places that we frequent, are just so beautiful and so ancient, and provide a really nice amount of cool shade in the summer when everyone's charging down to the beach at Bournemouth. So yeah, my New Forest is beautiful, and I'm really pleased that my children have grown up with that, being able to just pop over to the woods, and they build dens, and they've created a whole village in a certain area, and so we go to the village, and they've created little a school there with all with just sticks and bits of leaves and things, but they've got a school and a library and a cafe and all that kind of thing, and it's just lovely to see them just playing in the forest. So
how old are they?
Well, now they are 12 and 10, so now they like to go to the woods now to just be really cool and hang out. There's less den building, but there's a lot of tree climbing and fiddling, damming streams and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's still, I'm really grateful that they're still doing all that.
So we stopped off at Lyndhurst. Very nice. Is it a village or a town?
Yeah, I guess it's a large village.
I mean, lovely coffee shops. But you know what really struck me is there's a Ferrari shop.
Yeah.
I was blown away. I thought you'd have to order a Ferrari and wait a certain length of time for it to come. They were there in the showroom.
Yeah.
Go in and buy one. I mean, not that I'm interested in Ferraris, but it's like I hadn't seen a Ferrari shop before, and there were only Ferrari cars in it.
Yeah.
Just blown away.
It's a real
juxtaposition and all of that, and then you have Ferrari. Yeah.
It's a real juxtaposition. You see like that people in their dog walking stuff all covered in mud with all their wellies and whatever, and then being confronted by the shiny red things in the window and stopping to have their pictures taken and things. It is quite incongruous, but I think people travel for miles around to go there to see those cars. I understand.
The mind boggles, but anyway, it was just I was amused. So, but I love the streets, the houses, the buildings, the shops. Looked really, really nice. We just walked up the street. It was really nice.
Yeah.
And Poppy wants to know, is Lyndhurst the LA of the UK?
It sounds like it is, doesn't it? I would say, I don't know, maybe Bournemouth's a bit more swanky than Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst has still got lots of shops. If you're desperate for some lace and a tea towel, then you've definitely come to the right place.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, beautiful. So, how did you, or just tell us a little bit about your background? I suppose I know you have had a rich childhood and in terms of spirituality. So just kind of give us a flavor of where you came from, or how you started, or what brought you here, starting at the beginning.
Okay, so I grew up in the forest, as I said, but not actually in Lyndhurst, in another village. And so I went to the local primary and secondary school. And at that time, the primary school certainly was very Christian. There were lots of prayers and assembly and all that kind of stuff, Church of England-y. And someone came from the church each week to run a little club where if you answered questions about God correctly, you got a little rubber or a pencil or, some kind of interesting little trinket that you might want in the 80s. And so that was called the Quest Club. And so I used to go to that because it was nice. The energy in there was nice. It was a husband and wife that came, and they walked from the church, walked down, saw the children once a week and gave them out free things and then went back again. And so I liked how that felt. I didn't look at it in that sort of critical way, perhaps, that I just have. it just felt nice, and I thought I wanted to have that more than once a week. So I decided I'd go to Sunday school as well. So my family had never been to church and had never really talked about religion or spirituality or anything at all like that. And so based on Quest Club, I decided to take myself off to Sunday school and just turned up to a 10 a.m. on a Sunday. Hopefully there'd be something for me there, similar to Quest Club. And so each week I just went, and I would guess that was probably like the early 80s. And no one really batted an eyelid that a child was just turning up on their own, and the parents never came to collect, never came to drop off. I always walked home. Never had any money to put in the little collection bag. And so it seems weird looking back now, and also no one kind of discipled me, if you like. No one took me under their wing and took me back to their house for lunch, or even sort of sat with me or anything. I just week after week after week turned up and said some stuff that I really didn't understand, but sort of knew the pattern of. And then I also was in the Brownies and the Guides, which was kind of tied in with doing maypole dancing in the summer in the Vicar's Garden, and, you know, visiting old people and singing at them. And so I think I was quite a active person within that church congregation, although I never really was. I never really felt like I was in with anybody, or that I was important, or that was what I was choosing to do, even though I obviously was. So yeah, that continued for years and years and years, just randomly not giving it any thought and turning up. And yeah, and then I think, so the story of my life is that I did well at school, and then I went to college, and unfortunately the college gate and Brockenhurst being open to me was quite tempting. And so I didn't do so well at A-level. I was busy off in the village doing a tea and cake with my friend in the tea shop. And so I finished my A-levels with only one. So I tried to ask various people that, you know, lecturers and whatever, that how I could still get into uni with only one A-level. And at that point, it seemed like the general advice was resit them, and or wait until you're 21 and then you can do an access course and get in as a mature student. So I decided that I would retake them, and instead of going back to the same college, which I think I should have done, I decided to try something new and went off to a different college and did different A-levels. And so it was just the same old story. It was just too much information and not enough revision, and too many boys and discos, I think, at that point. Yeah, so I by the time I got to the fourth year of doing A-levels, I decided I would just get a job, and that I'd had enough, and clearly uni wasn't for me. So I took a job in a local, very swanky hotel, and as a receptionist. And the reason I took that was because I thought, I've always really loved stationery. That would be a good idea. Perhaps I could buy some new stationery. So I became a hotel receptionist, and then I became a head receptionist. And then I married the, who was then at that time, what was he? Food and beverage manager of a sister hotel. And I was pregnant by the time I was 21.
Okay.
So I had my first child at 22, and my second at 24. And all of a sudden, his promotion within the hotelier life took us to Bath. So we moved to Bath in 1996. And so I'd had a premature baby, my first baby, and that was all pretty scary. And when he was 11 weeks old, so only really just about sort of term, he we moved to Bath, and I lost all of my support system, you know, my friends and people that I'd been next to in the antenatal classes and all that stuff just sort of dropped away. And obviously my parents, my brother, my sister, everybody. So I found myself in Bath with 2 children. And that was never really, I never, as made obvious with my story about the church, never really thought about things. I just kind of did what happened, reacted to situations, and then stuck at it for years. So I decided at the point of seeing my son's face, so my firstborn baby, just this wave of, I can only describe it as love, just came over me like I'd never experienced before. And I just thought, I'll do anything for you. I'll just do anything. And that's my life now. And so I threw myself into motherhood in my early 20s, really wholeheartedly, you know, force feeding them lentils and, you know, doing
You're right.
everything that I thought was like a good mum would do. And and loved it. And then when my daughter was, so my second child, when she was 3 and my eldest son was 5, we moved back to the New Forest because his next promotion took him back to where we started off again. So I just kind of had this interlude in Bath. But of course, all of my friends and people had moved on. And so I came back to the forest as a young mum with again, no support system. And that was really the beginning of the end of that marriage, really, because he had a very ready-made social life within the hotel, and I was wholeheartedly being a stay-at-home mum. I didn't work at all at that point. And so it was really hard to make those worlds kind of collide and make sense of each other. So it came to the time when my son was going to go to school. So I assumed that he would go to the local primary school. And on day 11 of the trauma of handing him over to a stranger every day, which I know is my stuff, not his, he got told off for floating a leaf in a puddle. And for some reason, that was just my thing. You know, I hadn't given all of myself to this glorious human for him to be feeling so upset about something so trivial. I know what I'll do. I'll home educate. I'll just do it all, because that way, I then get myself an identity. That's what I do. That's who I am. But also, I'm not giving him to anyone else. I'm not giving any of them to anyone else. So with a 5 and a 3-year-old and absolutely no idea. And I think there was dial-up internet that we had, but there was certainly no sort of forums or blogs or groups in my local area where I could go and get support from. So I just felt a bit kind of like I jumped off a cliff with no idea what I was doing. And obviously we were becoming further and further estranged from each other. And so it was quite a difficult time anyway. So I decided that the best way to home educate him would be to set up a desk and to do alphabet work every day, because that's what he would do at school. And obviously I've read around the subject now and I would do it completely differently now. But at the time, I had him collecting objects from around the house that began with the letter of the day and all this stuff. And it was all very lovely and sweet and loving. And he never got told off. So that was the main thing. After a while, it became apparent that my idea of how I was going to do it and my 3-year-old daughter's idea of how she was going to do it were not compatible. So at one point I was trying to do some sort of science experiment with cooking with him, and she was literally on my ankle, and I thought, I can't, I'm not giving her enough. I don't know how I'm going to juggle all this and blah, blah, blah. So I started thinking maybe I should get some training in this. Maybe I should train and understand what I'm doing and why. And so I looked into Montessori training and thought that was the way forward for me, because it was a bit alternative and you know, that suited my new lifestyle. And so I was just looking around online for anything to do with Montessori locally. And I found what was then called the New Forest Montessori Preschool. And I thought, I'll go and have a look, not with a view to sending them there, but with a view to what is this thing called Montessori? I need to understand it. So my husband came with me, and it was just one of those perfect moments. So it was in a scout hall at the time, and it was a couple that had opened it, and their daughter was the same age as my son. And so she was reaching the end of her preschool time, and sort of they were thinking about extending this preschool into a primary school. And that meant that there was then this sort of primary setting for my son that was available in this scout hut with this lovely couple who were just so hippie and loving, and were definitely not going to tell my son off. And it was all very outsidey in the forest.
Yeah.
A little bit of Montessori equipment around, but certainly not, grounded in that theory only. And so we started talking about flexi schooling, and maybe there was a way for him to be at home with me some days and my daughter to be at home with me other days, and sort of mixing and matching so that I could have time at home with them both separately, and they could also have the social and everything at school. And I overheard my husband say to the guy that ran the school, do you think she's clever enough to home educate? I'm a bit worried. Do you think that she could do it? And like when something hits you on a level that you can kind of deal with it and mask it in that moment.
Yes.
But oh my God, that hit me like somewhere underneath my ribs. And I was like, not angry and not upset, but just so deeply hurt, I think is the only way I can describe it. And so that obviously stuck with me, that little phrase. Anyway, what happened was I trained in Montessori. I ended up working at the school. My children both went there. And we flexied right up until GCSE for my son. And at that point, just before his GCSEs, he went full time. And I was ready for him to do that at 15 because I'd built up this massive trust with the family and the whole community of the school and whatever. And so it was brilliant in my experience. It was a very small school. He was one of 4 kids doing GCSEs at the time. So, the classes were so small, the attention was fantastic. And I worked and paid fees out of, so it kept me very, very poor for a very, very long time. But managed it. And yeah, so the marriage finished, and that was 4 days after I started working there, actually.
Wow.
So that was good. So new career, new life as a single mum and all that stuff. So yeah, I juggled a lot for that time, but he got to his GCSEs and so did my daughter. So it was all great. And I think looking back...
Just a comment from Sean, who's in Canada. Well, you certainly demonstrated that you've got the patience for it then and there. Sorry to hear you had to experience that. Lots of comments about how awful it was to we home educated our kids.
Yeah.
So my 25-year-old has never been to school, and my daughter is now in the university. She started at 14 to go to school. So
right.
I understand how the importance of home education.
Yeah.
We didn't homeschool. We didn't emulate school.
No.
Following the kids.
Yeah.
But I was maturer. I wouldn't have done it at 22. I could not have done it. I'm an elderly mother, old enough to be my kid's grandmother. And my husband was much older than me as well.
Right.
So we were both very mature people and able to be arrogant enough to think we'd do a better job. We did. Yeah. My kids, our kids are delighted that we never sent them to, or my daughter had the grounding at home for 14 years. And then my son has never been. He wouldn't have managed. So it's well done. I mean, I don't know what kind of madness that you could trust yourself in your 20s, because I couldn't have done that. My 20s self would not have been able to do that. So I am in awe.
I think I was just naive, essentially. You know, when you feel infallible, that youth, that sort of, I can do anything. And right, if I'm going to be a single mum, I can, you know, I'll just get on with it. And there was no choice either. I felt there was no choice. There was no way he was going back to the other school. So I had no choice but to make it work. And I don't want to make myself come across as some kind of hero. I was not great.
No, but I mean, I wasn't invincible and infallible in my 20s. I never had that. I never went through that phase of confidence. So I'm always in awe of people do that. And Monica says, we had our 3 children in Montessori school. Now, we read, as part of we had read, you know, Maria Montessori's books and things, and we're aware of, you know, being child-led, etc. And Philippa says, it's very brave to take it on. You know what? Sometimes it's the, like you say, it's the only thing you can do. We did an hour a day. We didn't do whatever 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to do it, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I remember, I mean, we had 2. There were 2 of us, and we had 2 kids. I'm just thinking of you with trying to do the baking with your son and your daughter grabbing you by the ankle. I remember those moments. At other times, they're really, really hard and challenging. But we used to watch cooking programs, and then, okay, we'll cook whatever they were doing there. And you're reading, you're doing the maths, you're doing the science, all of that. And of course, the New Forest is a great place to bring up kids.
Yeah.
You know, out there in nature, and even in the Montessori school. So my hat off to you, and well done. So continue. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no. I was worried I was just going off on one. So I was on my own for quite a while, and then through the couple, the wife particularly, as a good friend, we started holidaying with each other. She had twins that were just a little bit younger than my 2, and the older girl that was the same age as my son. And we started going off and camping and this, that, and the other. And then as the children didn't really want to hang out with us anymore, we started going just the 2 of us. And so we'd go off and have weekends away in Glastonbury or whatever. And so that was the founder of the school. And we started going to this place in Dorset, which is, I've forgotten what they call themselves. I think it's a personal development centre. And so they offer meditations and, you know, like huge meditations, as in a long time and really intense, and all sorts of things. They hold festivals and dance festivals and singing festivals. And we started going to those. And I think it was at that point, that was my sort of early 30s, maybe, that I was doing all the play that I hadn't done in my 20s when I'd thrown myself into motherhood. So when the children were at their dad's and everyone was safely ensconced, I would go off for these mad weekends and have a brilliant time and meet new people. And it was really a very fun time, and never wanted to have a succession of uncles for the children or anything like that. And so I was at the community place, and there was a men's workshop going on, and my friend and I were just sat outside reading a newspaper, and this guy came out and smiled and sat down, and we got a juice together because it's all very healthy there, and he's now my husband.
Oh, lovely.
And so I remarried at I think I was 39.9. I had this massive thing that I didn't want to be a 40-year-old bride. And so so we had children together. So I had 2 more children, another girl and another boy. And that was when I was 36 and 38. So I thought I was doing it all really nice and young and getting it out the way and doing all that. And then I started again. So at the moment I have a 27, 25, 12 and 10-year-old. So my second batch, my new husband, Alex, started working at the school where I had always worked. So I was still there, even after the children had gone. And so our children between us came and are still there. And Alex is still at the school as well. So it's been this massive relationship that started in 2001, I think, and is still going now. So yeah, so the thing to mention about Alex and I is that I was 36, he was 24.
Oh, lovely.
So I had to do quite a bit of quick learning about what society thinks about that. And it's absolute trash.
Yes.
But women are treated so differently for having a younger partner than an older guy with a younger girl on his arm. And so that's actually been quite a tricky ride, being taken seriously as a couple within the family, not so much with friends and school community because they knew us, but that's been quite difficult with older members of the family. And
there's one comment from Philosophical, roar, you go girl. I put that in. Go on anyway.
Yeah, so we've been married 10 years this coming July, I think it is. Yes. So yeah, that's that side of things. So I'm not at the school anymore. I left in 2019. I lost my dad in 2017, and as is often the case, I believe, I just suddenly realized that I was just fretting over things that just didn't matter. I was working full time at the school at that point. I was safeguarding lead, school manager, head of kindergarten, all of these responsibilities, lots of different hats on. And whilst I'd welcomed them and been really glad to be able to have a say in the running of the school, it was so much, so much. And I was neglecting, well, I felt I was neglecting the mothering side of me, and I was giving it all away to other people's children. So I wanted that to stop. And I also knew that it would be very difficult to leave the community because I'd been such a part of it for so long without having a jolly good reason to. And so I didn't feel like I could get another job in a different school, or, there is no other school like this school in particular that I would want to work in anyway. So I decided that I would go to university. And at the time, Alex was playing football with the kids at school, and I just called out to him in mid-game, I think I'm going to go to university. I don't think we're going to be that much worse off if I can work part-time and do this. I think I could do it. And he was like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's talk about it. But yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And so I left my full-time job and went to uni. I wasn't going back. I hadn't been there in the first place. So I started when I was 46, and it was really scary because everyone was so young and clever, and I didn't even know if I could write an essay anymore. All I remembered that there definitely is a beginning, a middle, and an end of an essay, but that was about it. So I accepted all the support that was on offer from Academic Skills and all that kind of student support services stuff to help. And everything that they told me, I used as a to-do list and just did it. After 3 years, which included a year of COVID, or a year and a bit of being off campus for COVID, I graduated, which was amazing and one of the most proudest days, I think. And I swear that it comes back to that one comment that I overheard all those years ago of, do you think she's clever enough? It's like, yes, I am, actually.
The best revenge is to do well.
Yeah.
And you've got loads of support here. Poppy says the best relationship I had after my divorce was with the man 12 years younger than me. We had two couples in my family, with him being 10 to 12 years younger. Both marriages are very happy. So you are not alone.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
That's really nice. That's so nice to hear.
So what did you study? What was your degree in?
It was in education studies with early childhood, because that was what I knew. And I also thought that's probably the only way I'm going to show I've got any knowledge whatsoever, is talking about early years. And so, yeah, so I loved it. I loved every single second of it, you know, thinking philosophically about different models and different approaches to education was just what I'd kind of done as a hobby all the time I'd been working at the school, is analyze behavior and try and think of strategies and try and preempt things with parents and children. And it was really, really amazing to then slow down and have a bit of somebody else turning up to spoon feed me, rather than me being the one with all the jazzy equipment and interesting things to say. It was so nice to just sit and absorb knowledge. And yeah, so education studies.
I just want to interrupt you. Some comments. Philosophical says, congratulations. It's so powerful to take a hurtful insult and use it to motivate yourself to excel. Natasha says, I love how Claire demonstrates that society's timeline is nonsense and that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. It doesn't matter. It's an illusion in so many ways. Couldn't agree with you more, Natasha. And Gabriella said, it wasn't a hobby, though. It was a full-time job for many years for which you were qualified. And Sean says, the rich organic beauty of life often parallels the same in nature. What a rich journey, both wholesome and vindicating at the same time.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you. I don't really know what to say now.
So how did you find... Okay, so you did your degree, but you're also doing some research now. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so I basically treated, because I'd worked so hard as a practitioner, and then I went to this thing and I needed it to work because, you know, I'd kind of put my family into this journey and I needed to succeed at it. I treated it like a 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday. I was up at 6, out and on the bus, and, you know, really tried so hard. And there's no way I would have taken that attitude when it was, as whoever it was, said, society's timeline dictated. I would never have treated it that seriously. It didn't mean anything to me at all. It was just another thing that you had to do before you could, like, go out into the real world. And I was just so grateful and so studious. Anyway, I did quite well, and I received an award for my dissertation, which I was very proud of. And the funny story around that is that Alan Titchmarsh is our chancellor of the university, hands out the graduation things. And because of COVID, he wasn't shaking hands. He was doffing his cap to all the graduates as they came along. And because I'd got this award as well, he was sort of doing a big flourish to me to indicate that I'd done really well. And in my sort of panic, I didn't know what to do. So I sort of half curtsied and then thought, oh God, what am I doing? And so I sort of then bowed, and the photos of me with Alan Titchmarsh is just basically me bowing.
That's wonderful. That's a great story.
My family was so embarrassed, but it was hilarious. Yes.
Great.
So I was thinking then I would do a master's because I didn't want it to stop. And my supervisor said, you know, I reckon you could skip a master's and just go straight to PhD. And I didn't know if that was true. That took a lot of thinking about, because I didn't want to get into something that I couldn't finish. And I thought, people do masters for a reason. There must be it must be a good stepping stone to do before you just dive into this next enormous thing. And so I took a long while to decide, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And so I wrote a proposal and it was accepted, and I started in April of this year. So I'm only about 9 months in, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much. And that is the long story of how I came to Druidry, because it's my PhD research that's brought me to Druidry.
So how did you find OBOD? Because
I found OBOD because my thesis is going to be about re-enchanting early years education with Druidry as an ethical philosophy or culture. I can't decide what it is yet. And so it was because I wanted to have a feeling of indigeneity to my study. And I was just thinking one day, so what is indigenous religion to Britain then? What was here first? And so I just literally started like that. And then I read some Philip Carr-Gomm and I read some Ross Nichols, and that was purely by chance of what is the modern Druid today kind of question in my head, and just started reading. And then I said to my supervisor, I'm thinking it's Druidry. And he was like, oh, I'd love it to be Druidry. Wouldn't that be great if we could just think about Druidry for the next 3 years? So that was that sort of decided. And so I found Obod really through picking up books and reading them. I then just thought I'd like to, not like, and I don't know how to word it in a way that is really true for how it was for me, but the more reading I did, the more sense it made, and the more it felt like this is what I had then. This was what I was searching for that time in the church. Mm-hmm. And all of the psalm reading and all of that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I never applied it to life, and just went back again as a child, obviously. And I think that the more I just read, and then obviously I read some Hutton and goodness knows what else now, I just thought that it feels really nice. It's that energy that I can feel from it that is just so calming. And when I thought about it, I thought I can't really write about Druidry unless I really know what it is. But it was never a case of, as part of my research, I will join Obod. It was on the periphery, for my life, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to study Druidry, and I will put what I know about the chronological history and all that kind of stuff that I have to say in there. But this is like different. This is something that I feel I need in my life, and it was about a reverence for nature. For me, was the thing, and spending my childhood in the forest and never really finding a spiritual connection otherwise. It just seemed like, I'm sure lots of people say coming home or the right thing or just felt right or whatever. All of those things.
Yeah, Beth says a homecoming of sorts. At least that is how that aspect felt to me. Right time, right place, right path. I think, people, I have said it, and lots of people say it's something like, a homecoming. And Timey says it doesn't sound like coincidence, dear Claire. Yeah. These things are meant to do. So that is absolutely fascinating. So any gems you'd like to share with us so far about your research, or what you've...
Yeah, so the thing I'm looking at the moment is the relationship between archaeologists and Druids, and that's so interesting. I have got a couple of I've got one piece of writing and one poem that I'd like to share at some point or other. But yeah, just looking really at that, the journey in society's learning, if that's the right terminology to use, that it's not about that all happened years ago and so now it's not real, it's something different. And actually today's sort of more individual look at things, that is, it can be whatever I want it to be. It doesn't have to be relating to ancient Druidry, and it doesn't even have to be anything other than what I want and need it to be for me. And I love that organicness, the path just winding how it winds. And it's tricky in a way to frame it academically, because that it's not easy to do that because of everything. But yeah, I've had some great conversations with Ronald Hutton. That's been really helpful, and with you. And yeah, it's really, I've loved looking back at the lectures. Is it Mount Hemus or
Mount Hemus? The Mount Hemus, yes.
I've loved reading the lectures there, and I've contacted a couple of those people and spoken with them. So it's just all opening up. And with regard to my journey into OBOD, I am only on about number 5, I think, but of the Bardic grade. But I went to a winter solstice at Knowlton Church and Rings, which is near Wimborne Minster in Dorset, for winter solstice, and that was so much fun. It was really raucous and joyous and nutty and brilliant. And then you suggested when I chatted to you about, can you help me, what is a druid? About joining the Sylvan Grove, which is the group that literally 3 miles down the road from me, I think. It's just absolutely perfect. So I contacted them after we spoke to this lovely lady, and she invited me along to their winter solstice. And it was just so magical. It wasn't any of what the other celebration had been. It was so heartfelt and so magic and so spiritual and so moving. I just about managed not to cry before I got back in the car. And it was just beautiful, and some really beautiful people, lovely, caring sentiments. And I just felt like I'd come home, and it was so close to my home. I felt really lucky about that. But yeah, so I've only been to one so far. I'm going for the Imolc at, again, just down the road. And I'm really looking forward to that. And they've got a whole retreat going on, so it's going to be lovely.
You're very fortunate to be living where you do, because that grove is a very strong grove, and they do retreats every year. And it was members of the Sylvan Grove who led the Druid Gorset last year,
right,
in New Forest, and they do a really good job. So wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Yes. So in a sense, so apart from the research, I mean, and what kind of impact has Druidry on your life? Is there anything you've noticed?
Very subtle shifts, I think. A subtle shift in that I look forward to the evenings when I can cozy up with a cup of tea and read my latest installment and just be slow with it. It has definitely slowed me down, which I probably haven't exhibited speaking so quickly tonight. But yeah, it's definitely slowed me down. It's made me think about what I like doing creatively, which I don't think I've thought of for a long while, because that's obviously, there's motherhood and there's jobs and working, and then there's university, that I tend to fill my time productively. And although I really enjoy knitting and I'm learning to crochet and all that kind of stuff, that's about keeping my hands busy and doing something while I'm chatting or watching or whatever. But since I've been reading the bits from OBOD, I've really felt like, oh yeah, I really do enjoy poetry. And actually, I could write a poem. And if I could write a poem, it's going to be about the half fallen down apple tree with mistletoe on it at the top of Chalicewell Gardens in Glastonbury. And it's going to be about slowing down and stopping and what that tree's seen. And so I've got it in my mind. I will write it at some point, but I've never done that before. And so, yeah, that's Arwen, I guess, is it?
It is. That is beautiful. Geraldine says, so precious, Claire. Thank you. I'm inspired. And Louise, as I'm reading my booklets and loving it, and it's really interesting around the subtlety. I mean, I know the bardic grade, you get your gwers for, for a period of a year, and it took me 7 years to finish my bardic grade, and I know other members have taken much, much longer. There is no rush. It is about staying with a gwers or a particular exercise or meditation or working with an element, and staying there and sitting with that for as long as you need. And Philosophical says, I know what you mean. Poems always seem to need gestation. And I think some people can spit them out very quickly, and others, they do need incubation, gestation, incubation, feeding, time. And everybody has their own timeline. And like you were saying earlier, the society thinks you go to school, you do well, you go to university, and that is the desired pathway. And anyone else has kind of fallen off that pathway, not so successful. When in fact that isn't the case at all. It's about following your own path in your own time, in your way.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting, isn't it? You can see, or I could see that for my children, but I couldn't see it for me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know I've never gone straight anything. It's like it's been windy, maybe labyrinthine, or like a spiral, a triskel, in this way, out that way.
Yeah.
It makes life very, very interesting. And, Michelangelo, when he was 87, said, Ancora imparo, I am still learning. When I came across that quote, I thought, oh, what a relief. Because I remember when my mother used to say, I'm too old to change, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and old people, they can't learn, and it's not fair to them, etc. It's like, there's no reason why you should stop learning at any point. It's wonderful. So
when I was at university, the oldest person on the course was 87. It's amazing.
When I was a mature student as well. I mean, I was there twice as a mature student, but when I was an undergrad, the oldest died when she was 88.
Wow.
It's just brilliant. So what would you say? Do you want to read a poem now?
Yes.
Why? Just tell us a little bit why you've chosen this one.
Yeah. So the first thing I'd like to read isn't a poem, it's just a piece of writing. And it's by an author, I don't know if you know of her, Robin Wall Kimmerer, that's written Braiding Sweetgrass.
Yeah.
It's a quote from that. And I think because my study, particularly undergrad and obviously now leaking into PhD, is essentially about ecology and environmental activism and that kind of thing, that I'm often thinking about the world in a very sad way. Not when I'm walking in the forest like today and enjoying the beauty of it all, but when I'm thinking for work, I have to think about sad statistics, and I'm thinking about them until quite late at night sometimes, and then it can get to you. So this is something that I read fairly recently, and I thought it would be really appropriate to read. So, even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift.
Oh, I'm going to look that up, because that is just...
It's beautiful, isn't it?
So powerful. Is that from Braiding Sweetgrass?
Yeah.
I just put this into the chat so people can find it themselves. Robin, she's Wall Kimmerer, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Kimmerer. I hope that's it.
Yeah, it is, yeah. She's basically she's a scientist, but she's also weaves into her science studies Indigenous wisdom, and so it's this beautiful sort of magically woven into. It's just lovely.
It's a great book, and I listened to it on audio.
Ah, yeah.
And listening to her voice, and it was just brilliant. So I mean, obviously, there's lots of response here. People loving the book. But that's a beautiful quotation. Even a wounded world feeds us, and I'll find the rest of the quotation. That is just beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So as I said, the other poem, it's a poem. So in my research about the relationship with Druids and archaeologists, I came across Stuart Pigott, who is the monograph person from 1966, I think, 68, and his book, The Druids. And it's so harsh, and I read it and felt it was so condescending and just, okay, you can think that it's of its time, but it was just so unnecessarily harsh. And a friend of mine directed me to a conference that had been written up from Southampton University, where a Druid, Tim Sebastian, had presented. And he had called Stuart Pigott Stuart the Bigot. And so I went into reading about Pigott, thinking he was a bigot, and really not liking his work anyway. And then gradually, as the research has developed, and obviously everybody is so complex, and that's a really immature sort of juvenile way of looking at a person. But I was briefed before I started reading about him, and he was so complex and multi-layered, as we are. And I think it was Tim Sebastian himself, if not one of his colleagues, that found watercolors that he had painted of Stonehenge, which kind of gave him this more able to relate to side of his character. So Tim had coined this phrase and then seen these watercolors and just thought, I didn't know he had that about him. They were of Stonehenge and the area around and whatever. And it was clear that there was a lot more going on for him. And then in one of the, I think it was Julia Farley's lecture, Mount Haemus lecture, she talked more about Stuart Pigott as a person and how he was a young person trying to carve out a career in archaeology. And I really started to see him as this person. And so I changed my views and started writing much more kindly. And then I came across, I think it was Julia Farley, actually, the lecture, yes, it was, that she had published a poem of his. So this has been said before, but again, it makes me think of the earth in a slightly different way, in a quite romanticized archaeologist sort of way about what the earth can give us. So it's called Wessex Harvest. Now the ancient Wessex hills seize their last splendour. Once Stonehenge building, their princes proud and their Wicklow gold strode in the sunshine. Now earth inherits their dust, who are chalk graved, dry, frail and brittle, pale bones under barrows, poor fragments, those great ones. But see, the austere lines of downland are gladdened splendid now, flaunting armour of gold red plate, corn stalks its studding, new from old treasure in this year's miraculous rebirth in the harvest. And so in all years is nothing forgotten, always the far dead things, new life begetting.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And it really just changed my perception of him again, to think, you know, he'd been to war, he came back, he became an archaeologist in a discipline that was really quite new compared to others. And he was a little artist and poet at heart, you know. So I've changed his persona in my research now.
It's really interesting. we have a number of sacred sites in Kilkenny, but Knockroe's Passage Tomb is aligned to the winter solstice. It's like our Newgrange, and we have a lovely the archaeologist Mauritius Sulawan. He comes every year to the, and actually this year was the first year that we as Druids were invited to have a ceremony as part of the gathering, which was really nice. But Mauritius, I've been going for years, and he would speak, and there's a softness to him and an openness to him. He doesn't say there's no evidence, so therefore it didn't happen. It's like no idea. We can maybe glean or infer from, and I've had a few conversations with him, and he's always been really pleasant. Where there are other archaeologists, nope, there's no evidence. That's just pure conjecture. We're not going to go there, which makes it very, very, very dry.
Yes,
very, very rigid. Where it's interesting. I think it's really, really important. If you're stuck on only evidence, where's the play? Where's the magic? Where is the imagination? And I think we can play with imagination. Perhaps I'd like to think I could imagine this happening in ancient times. Not stating it as a fact, but allowing us to open up to the magic of these places.
Yeah.
I mean, you say a pile of stones and they were put up. Okay, I don't know how they did it. So what? But it's like, no. It was a Gabriella, a dialogue is the essence of progress. It is, and it's about being so open to what might be and not stuck. So I think if you're tied into a really, really strict academic paradigm, then you miss the magic.
Yes,
which make work very, very boring.
Yeah, you said that to me. That was one of the quotes I took away. You said in the gap, that's where the magic lies. You just can't say that you've got academic evidence for it. That's certainly what I got when I spoke to Ronald Hutton was, you know, these myths myths and stories are woven stronger each time somebody imprints something on it from their time. And how is that not magic? It's a very beautiful way of looking at it, and it feels like, to me, I'm being authentic when I take that view. And so, I just need to work it all out and then apply it to early years education.
Rodasi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I see you have a Scottish surname, Campbell. Being open has been a great teacher for me. Beautiful. And Timey says, interesting, fascinating about ancient druids outside the UK for you. Kelton. Oh yes, I've been there, Timey. The Keltenwelt Glauberg. If you look, Glauberg is in it's in Germany. I was over there the summer before last, going to one of the Obod gatherings, and our hosts live in Bavaria, so we spent a few days there and drove up to the Eiffel where the camp was and stopped off at Glauberg. And there's a prince there, a Druidic prince, who has it's well worth visiting. Any of you, if anyone for Germany here or Europe, go there. It looks like Mickey Mouse head on him, but it's believed to be mistletoe leaves. And he has a necklace that looks like an Aowen with his beads. It's exquisite. That is a Celtic site and a burial site. So that's just, Timey has just said that. You can look it up. It's Glauberg, Glauberg.de.
Oh, amazing.
So, and okay, and since Gabriella says, I associate academic evidence with the element of air, and there are also the rest of the elements to take into account. What a lovely way of putting that.
Yeah, that's great, actually. That's a great way of looking at it.
Because it's like, I don't think we're ever going to complete the picture. And you were talking about Druidry for how you, in terms of children's education, that Druidry for me, and it's part of the ethos of the order, is that we're not reconstructionists. Is that we will look to the past and we may find clues, but that Druidry is an organic, living spiritual path, and that it develops in relevance to our times. And listening to Ronald Hutton as well, he was talking about, for example, this thing, this belief that the Celtic New Year is celebrated at Samhain. And there's no actual evidence that, I think it might have been James Fraser, had heard somebody else say it. And so what people do would rely on a previous academic paper as fact, and then that perpetuated. But he said, just because there is no evidence doesn't mean you can't celebrate it.
Yes. Yeah.
That it can be that now, if that's what you wish.
Yeah.
It's just not to claim that it's an ancient whatever, but that this is what we can do. Just like the Wheel of the Year isn't ancient.
Yes.
Modern invention. It's a synthesis of the Celtic fire festivals, and then Ronald would say that phrase "fire festivals" is also modern invention. However, they were agricultural festivals. We say the agricultural festivals, and they're in all our mythology in Ireland. They don't mention the solstices and the equinoxes in the stories, but we know from the ancestors, it's obvious from the alignments. So it's a beautiful synthesis to have your solar festivals with your agricultural festivals to create that beautiful wheel. And this is how we can make sense in the modern world as we go forth. And I mean, what a lovely that every 6 weeks we have something to celebrate. Tuning into the landscape and what's happening out there and bringing it into our own.
Excuse me.
And what was that lovely reminder of where we are on our path?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Sean says, academics are important for determining setting and context, but Awan is an X factor which makes the puzzle complete.
That's a good one.
Yes, just beautiful, beautiful. So what would you say this what would you say is your greatest achievement that you're most proud of?
With hindsight, taking the leap into looking after my children and educating them in a way that felt right to me, but it didn't feel like a great achievement at the time, because obviously there was a lot of family concerns about how much of a percentage less schooling the children were receiving than normal children.
Yes.
And so that was a bit of a battle. So I guess the survival of the battles and the doing it my own way, but also graduating and having all 4 of my kids there at my graduation was just so wonderful. And we all had lunch afterwards, and it was just a lovely family day, and I just felt so celebrated and
beautiful,
happy. And yeah, I was really proud that day.
What would you say is the most reckless thing you've done?
Going out with a 24-year-old when I was 36.
Wonderful, wonderful.
My friend said to me, "Oh my God, you're not going to see him again, are you?" And I was like, "Well, yes." And she was, "No, don't. You can't. It's just so silly. It's not going to go anywhere." And I just completely knew that it was, and just did it anyway. And it was one of those. So we met. I think it was the 6th of December, and then there was lots of Christmassy things and family and whatever. And obviously, I didn't want to introduce him to my children straight away. And so we had a couple of walks together. He had a little puppy at the time. And so we walked the dog together on Hengistbury Head, just near to Christchurch, which I forget which age that is. I think it might be Iron Age. I don't want to say, but it's beautiful, beautiful place. And the weather was absolutely icy, freezing cold, bright blue skies. And we were holding hands, and I just absolutely knew that the sun shining on us was a sign that it was going to be fine, and I was just going to do that anyway. But I think it was actually quite a reckless thing, and then to want babies again was all quite reckless. There was a moment where I was waving my eldest off to his first house party, thinking please don't do drugs, and please don't drink too much, and please come home, with a teething toddler on my hip and a puppy jumping around all over the place. In that moment, I did think, oh my God, what have I done? Because I was up all night breastfeeding, and then I had to be trying to not let each part of motherhood interfere with the other part and get everybody doing everything that they wanted to do. So yeah, that was a massive thing, but I knew in my heart that it was the right thing to do. So I guess that's not essentially reckless.
Well, you see, reckless is about what appears reckless and works out, because I've done reckless things that were the right thing to do. Jules says, you went above the accepted social norm for the education of your children and achieve your academic dream. Indeed, fabulous accomplishments in a world that doesn't always understand these things.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
So absolutely sweet.
Yes, thank you, Jules.
You're such a loving audience.
Oh no, absolutely. We have. I think we have the best audience. You know.
Do.
And Barb says, thank you for this deep wisdom. You know, just philosophical says, anything that does not grow or change is not living. And that's one reason I love Druidry. It's beautiful. Just beautiful. What are you most grateful for?
The health of my family. Yeah. And being warm tonight. You know, I have a lot of things to be thankful for, and being warm in a house right near the trees of the New Forest. You know, all of those things. Grateful for a lot of things. I'm really grateful for my university and my supervisor, and when I was at the depths of my stress, which was sort of 2016 to 2019. With work, my hair went pure white overnight. This is now out of
my
the bottom.
Goodness, wow.
And I was so stressed, and I can remember thinking, well, I know that I was actually physically annoyed by women that could just drop their children off to school and drive home in silence in the car or listen to the radio or whatever, because I was so het up. And if I could have looked ahead and seen that I would be doing what I'm doing now, and my general day is cozy and warm with plenty of cups of tea and, you know, silent reading and brilliant people to bounce ideas off of and all that kind of stuff, I would have just thought I would be in heaven. And I do feel this is the most content part of my life that I've had so far. Although I'm kind of working towards a PhD, I don't feel I'm striving. It's just kind of happening. I do have moments of striving with presentations and horrible stuff like that. But it's genuinely just my dream situation. So I'm grateful for everything.
Gabrielle has a question. Have you ever experienced burnout?
Yeah. I would say that was the 2017, my dad dying, trying to hold down a full-time job. The kids were still quite young then. And trying to be everything that I needed to be to everybody was a lot. And so, yeah, my hair went white, and I would occasionally have to just be ill from work and just have the flu for a week and just lay in bed for the week and watch TV, basically, to try and stop the brain chatter. And, you know, that was all a bit much.
What took you out? Apart from spending a week in bed, what was it that took you out of burnout? What brought about resolution for you?
So yeah, I would say I was in that space for quite a while. A while before I noticed it, a while before the pattern became noticeable to other people. And the things that was supposed to make me feel better, like having some time out or, you know, going for a massage or a meditation or whatever, was just nothing. It felt like no amount of meditating is going to stop me feeling like this. No amount of massage is going to massage these knots out of my brain, you know. And so that lasted for quite a long time. And I would say that it was only when I left the school and I walked away from the responsibility of the preciousness of people giving me their children to keep safe every day, you know, that was such a huge weight for me that it wasn't until I walked away from school that I came out the other side of that. And even then, it took me a year of doing what I now love, sitting and studying, to unravel that time, you know, to physically, I was so achy and so just het up inside physically, that took a good year at least. And I'm pretty sure I'm still doing that, unraveling the stress of that time. And obviously the death of my dad played into that, because there was lots of physical things I needed to do and be at certain times and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was mainly the being everything to everybody and doing it right.
Wow.
And I was listening to a chat you did. I'm not sure if it was the last one, but it was a guy, Albie, is it?
Yes, Albie.
And he was talking about oh God, I've lost my train of thought now. What was he talking about? No, it's gone completely.
So what you were talking about, burnout and getting out and making the decisions, you know, to leave.
No, it's gone. Sorry.
I know.
If it comes back, I'll say.
Thank you. Tiny says, "What a blessed realization, dear Claire. Wishing you this for the future too."
Oh, that's very
Gabriella
kind.
says, "Doing things right can add mountains of pressure." Of course it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. He said he was a Virgo. Albie said he was a Virgo, and that streak of perfectionist he feels. That's me. That I have to get it right. I can't just look after other people's children. I have to make sure they're eating right, their posture's great, you know, they're having all these amazing books and amazing practitioners. I couldn't just keep them safe and go home. It weighed very heavily.
And that's a huge pressure. The thing is about being a perfectionist. You are never good enough.
No.
I'm a psychologist, so I work with clients, and I'd say, "You sound like a perfectionist." I'm not. I always get it wrong. I said, "That's exactly what a perfectionist is."
Yeah.
No, you know, no notion of being good enough. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
What concerns you about the modern world? One.
Climate change. I went to a lecture last night that was about the chaos theory and how extreme weather events become more frequent or don't become more frequent because of man's interaction within them. And somehow seeing that all very scientifically was quite a lot to take on. Interesting, but it was one of those lectures that it tells you all the facts. It's so helpful, but there's no solution. You know, that there was no hope at the end of it. I quite like reading people that are a bit more flowery, like James Lovelock or Arne Nace or whatever, and Gaia theory and all that kind of stuff, that you still have to get into the nitty gritty of the science of it all, but actually there's hope within those ideas. So yeah, I think the whole reason behind my thesis is hopefully that with more reverence for the natural world within early education, you would hope that it would produce children who feel that interconnectedness, are more likely to protect that which they know themselves to be part of. And at the moment, early years education is sort of getting children out on AstroTurf or whatever they've got and doing learning outside, but they're not slowing down and they're not looking in that sort of more reverential way that I think, you know, you could bring about with a spiritual connection to the natural world. So I think my fear for the world has sparked this, the whole idea for the thesis, really.
Have you come across Joanna Macy?
Yeah.
I used some of her writings when I was lecturing, and you know, that, I mean, as Druids, we know about the interconnectedness of all things.
Mm.
And she says that when people wake up to that interconnectedness, they don't have then to look to find some little altruistic streak within them. It's that when you sense that interconnectedness, then there's an imperative to take
Yes.
care, like you do with your children. You know, you
Yeah.
have that connection. So it's not about trying to find the good mother in you to, oh, you may be frustrated and all of that,
Yeah.
but you still have that drive.
Mm.
The majority of mothers do, or parents, to keep their children safe. That connection is so strong that that's what you do. So, given that you went to that talk that didn't give you any hope, what does give you hope?
Yeah. Sorry, did you say what does give me hope?
Yes. Can you find any to share with us?
Well, I did love that Robin Wall Kimmerer. I think that reading, I think that's really sums up what I really strive to do for myself, is to continue doing the right thing. And obviously life is full of compromises that we have to make on a daily basis, but keeping on as much as you can to do the right thing and to enjoy the beauty of the natural world. We really felt that in lockdown. You know, we felt so lucky that we could just be in the forest and no one else was allowed, and it was silent and beautiful, and we were so lucky. And then obviously as life sort of gradually has taken back over, you know, we still need to find the time to find the beauty in a little wren on a branch that I saw this morning, or, you know, a missel thrush or whatever. So nature gives me hope, and being in nature gives me hope.
Have you come across Trevor Johnson?
No.
Radical Joy for Hard Times. Well worth.
Radical Joy for Hard Times.
Yeah. I read her book, and she's talking about, even with the hard times we have, and with climate destruction, for example, people can often say, this was once a place of beauty, but they've all cut down the trees and I can bear no longer. Look at it. She said, even rubbish heaps, dumps, go and look and find that little flower.
Yes.
That little shoot, the little sapling that comes up, and not to abandon damaged environments because it's too painful.
Yeah.
And for me, that would be like staying with somebody who's dying.
Yes.
Who they're no longer pretty, or they've had scars or limbs removed. You don't say, oh, you're not the person I fell in love with, I can't stay with you. You don't look beautiful anymore. You go beyond that and you stay with and accompany, and that will accompany the earth and stay in those, finding that joy. And I think it's those, when you I love, you know, I'm walking along a street. I prefer to be in the country, but when I am in a town and then there's a space between two buildings, and then you see the buddleia trees, or you see plants, little flowers just pushing through the cracks, and you go, this is amazing that here you are in an urban environment and nature still doesn't stop. You know, that
against all odds.
Absolutely. Sean McCann says, we don't trip over mountains, we trip over stones. Interesting. It's the small things. Anyway, so we're coming to the end of our time, and it's been such a joy talking to you. My last two questions always are, what is your favorite season in the year? And what is your favorite ceremony on the Wheel of the Year?
Oh, that's really hard. I would have given that loads of thought. It's a cop-out to say I love them all. I love autumn, particularly in the forest. Everything's so beautiful. My birthday's in September, so I'm always looking forward to that. I love the harvest. I'm gonna say Imolc.
Oh, Gabriella, you got it right. Sorry, Gabriella bets, and her success rate isn't great, but she'd be really happy today. She thought summer, but Imolc, she's guessed that. So she's So
It's my my last baby was born on the 2nd of February, and so it's always like that time of like, just snowdrops and birthdays and life's coming back, and and I know that you can do that at winter solstice and whatever, but no, that is a beauty, and autumn is my favorite season.
lovely. My daughter was born on the 26th of January, but she was conceived after a Bealtaine ceremony. So, and on time she came. So, well, I was in labor for 48 hours, but yes. But that is lovely. And Gabriella says, she says, my success rate increased. It did. Well done, Gabriella. I was also sure her birthday was in September. So, so Lisa says, thank you, Joy. Joy is okay and good. It's the joy of the little things which makes life worth living, at least in my eyes. That's what Tammy says. And grateful to be here. Thank you. Awfully much. Anyway, so. And she says, this is Gabriella, I'm also in September, and I stress equally as Claire. Anyway, she says, thank you. Philippa, the joy and gratitude of life and nature. Yeah. And I think Anita says, Anita's in Wexford, thank you, Claire, for sharing your story. So enjoyable. Enjoy. And Karen McSweeney is in the New Forest. I don't know if you know her. A very enjoyable fireside chat, uplifting. Thank you for a wonderful evening, positive and hopeful. Sean McCann says, Restones, it's in reference to perfectionism.
Yeah.
So thank you. So it's been just a joy chatting to you, Claire.
It really has. I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. I always enjoy these chats and learning so much more. And I wish you all the best with your research. And,
thank you.
You're crazy to take on a doctorate, but anyway, it
might be the most reckless thing I've ever done yet.
and the thing is, you need a madness to take it on. Otherwise, of course, if you're really sensible, you wouldn't have children.
Yeah, it's true.
There were lots of things you would not do, and it's like, well, I hear you, Sean. I hear you. Thank you for another enjoyable evening. Thank you so much, Claire. Appreciate you. Such an inspirational chat, Claire. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely.
Good conversation. All the best. So it's been really, really. Thank you both for a lovely fireside chat. Night to all. Blessings. Blessings from the snowy Finnish winter. So we've no snow here, but it's cold. I don't often get snow here. I've only had 2 white Christmases in my life. The first one was in early 60s, and one was 2010. Nimi says, every success on your continuing pathway, Claire. I've loved your life adventure. So fearless. And Faye Woman, thank you and best wishes for your future. Thank you, Claire. So
it's so lovely. Thank you to everyone.
So I will just let you say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll send you back, and then we can look at the comments afterwards when we've gone off the air.
Yeah, just thank you so much for being there, and thank you for your lovely comments. It kind of, it's a very uplifting thing to do. I was a little bit nervous and didn't know how it would go, but it's been an absolute joy. So thank you.
And you didn't come across as nervous at all. It was just a joy. Anyway, I'll chat to you in a few moments, and I'll say goodbye to everybody. So it's been so lovely, and I see Louise is in snowing heavy in Derry. Wow. It's been such a joy chatting to Claire and your comments, and as always. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And then remember, we have our Imbolc ceremony online on the 27th of Saturday, the 27th of January. It's a week earlier. And I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, be well, stay warm. I know there's a few swelterers down in Australia. We have a few Southern Hemispheres watching. And Barb says it's warming up in Texas. Well done. So be well and enjoy the rest of your evening, afternoon, morning, day, or if you're watching a recording of this chat. So until we meet again, be well. Ag slán go fóill.